You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm joined by Daylan Flowers. Got him back in before I went on my vacation. Daylan, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, man. A little busy right now, but everything's going pretty good on my end. I can't complain.
Yeah, last week you said you were in Dallas at a camp for people that wanted to be sports journalists.
Yeah, so it's a camp called Play-by-Play Sports Broadcasting Camp, and they've been doing it for I think 30 years now. And I was lucky to be a part of it when I was about 14. As a camper, and I learned exact things of the sports journalism world that I was good at and things that I thought I was really better at than certain things. And so I had the opportunity last year to go back with my first time as a counselor, and I went back last week. And it's just a lot of fun, man, just kind of mentoring younger kids that are either like from the age about 8 to about 17, 18, and some younger and maybe just have a love of sports and really don't know a lot yet, but also as well, those are older than in high school or getting ready to get into the real world before they know it, to kind of help and mature them and give them a lot of real world advice too. But it was super fun, man. I love what I do.
Yeah, I picture that camp having a thing after people deciding that, yes, I want to go into sports journalism, and you go through a door, and inside that door they're having a meeting. It's like, so you decided to be broke. I think that is would be a pretty good representation of that camp.
Yeah, and it's funny.
You're not going to make money in sports journalism.
And a lot of the kids at their age too, they all want to be like, I want to do play-by-play. And you know, I was that kid too. You know, when I was 14, I wanted to be the play-by-play guy. I loved Brent Musburger growing up, so I wanted to be Brent Musburger. And then reality hit me, and I realized I wasn't that good at that, and I had a different love in the sports journalism world. And I've told kids that, look, like, you're not, we're not going to be Stephen A. You're not going to be, certain these guys that are making millions of dollars. And that's okay if you love what you're doing, like I do. The money's not really the biggest thing about it, because I love what I do. So it's a part of just being a love and attached to what we do.
Yeah, I started out the same way. I wanted to do play-by-play. That was the whole thing. You had the fake microphone calling the game, all of that stuff. And then you go into the actual real hard journalism stuff, and it's like, no, that's not really it either. I ended up landing on basically doing magazine type shows. That was kind of my wheelhouse, and obviously that's what I've created here.
Yeah, I realized when I went to the camp at 14 that I was good at sideline reporting. And then I got into writing more. And then, of course, during COVID, I got into podcasting, which is taking me here. And then as well, I've gotten into photojournalism lately. So, like, there are different aspects that I like to tell people that are getting into this. Like, don't always have to just focus on one thing unless you just feel like you're really good at it and you want to invest everything into it. But I wanted to be play-by-play, but I came in and I was like, okay, I got this. And then I realized it's too much for me. I don't think it's the best, way for me to go. And I don't think I can handle all the preparation and intangibles it takes to actually be a play-by-play guy. And that's okay. I mean, my dream wasn't meant to be that. And I found my love and dream for a different way inside this world still.
Well, let's talk a little Ole Miss sports, since we're only going to have you like once or twice for the next month. Greg McElroy came out, that article came out about that from his Always College Football podcast, he referred to Ole Miss as a destination school. His exact quote was, Lane Kiffin has created a transfer portal destination school. And I don't know if that can be argued, but there's a chance, Daylan, like a legitimate chance, where Ole Miss could end up with like 4 players that are out of high school are 5-star players. And I think Greg McElroy is onto something, but it's not just transfer portal now. Yeah. It's bleeding over into other stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point. Real quick, as well, I want to just shout out like our other athletics, like our track and field team just had a couple of national championship winners. Our softball team just went to the regionals a couple months ago, and our men's tennis team had a couple of NCAA tournament advances as well. Look, it's not just football, but we are kicking athletics all over the butt right now. I know Mike Bianco and squad didn't have the best year, but I expect a really good summer for them in recruiting and kind of tail back. But Chris Beard came in and brought just a new life and energy to the town. Coach Yo's done her thing. Obviously, Lane Kiffin and company are progressing in a really fantastic way. But you made a real good point about the high school. We're kicking butt in the high school recruiting in a way I've never seen. And it starts in the state. And there's one kid right now that I won't say his name, but I would love him to come to Ole Miss. But other than that, we're keeping the guys in the state of Mississippi at the University of Mississippi. They're not going to state. They're not going to other schools. And we're keeping them here. And that's important because not only does that show a bit of faithfulness from our coaching staff and our players, but it shows where we are going in terms of just the entire environment of our squad, our program, our coaching staff. Because years ago, even if we were successfully going in the transfer portal, our high school recruiting was still in a downturn, and that's why we had to focus and invest so much into the transfer portal. But now we've gotten to the point where we're kind of understanding where we are as a program, and we've elevated that over the last few years. And I think Greg McElroy's made a great point. I mean, I think that comes with winning, but I think we've done a good job with social media, with NIL. And as much as I've said, and I know Lane has even said this, as much as this NIL and transfer portal world is a little bit funky and kind of malfunctioning, we've done a really good job at what we could do with it. And so that's just a testament to our coaching staff, our players, our social media teams, and really just people that either alumni or love this school that have really invested in helping making this program one of the consistently elite programs in the country.
Yeah, and if you look at it, it's like every top 25 that comes out from everybody, because we're in the heart of talking season right now for about the next 3 weeks. And you look at the Athlons and the Lindy's, those are about to hit the stands. The Phil Steels are about to come out. They've gone to print. But where would you put Ole Miss football in the top 25? And who are the ones that you would put above Ole Miss football? Not for like reputation or anything, but like for real. Like Georgia, I could see Georgia sitting at number 1. But who would you put ahead of Ole Miss football right now?
I think there's a few, not a lot. I think Georgia, of course. I think as much as I dislike Ohio State, I think Ryan Day has built a really good squad up in Columbus, and from top to bottom, I think he has a team that he believes is ready to compete and finally win a national championship under his helm. I think Steve Sarkisian has brought a lot of talent back from last year and has really done a great job in the high school recruiting portal as well this year. And so I think I put Georgia, Ohio State, Texas up there. I put Oregon up there too, right in front of us. I think Dan Lanning has continued to invest a lot into every single part of his football program in Eugene, Oregon, and I think he's a great recruiter, great coach, great motivator, and I think he's brought a lot of talent back as well. But they did a really good job in the transfer portal, and I think they were one of the best teams outside of us and maybe a few other teams. They did a really good job in the transfer portal, and they did kind of a different turn of what we did, and they kind of just focused on maybe certain keys and they needed instead of a lot of depth because they already had that and maybe got a different advancements. And of course they got their quarterback at Oklahoma this past year, and we'll see how he turns out. So I put those teams ahead of us. I love to see more from Florida State, and they could be in that realm right in front of us. But other than that, I think those would be a few of the teams that Oregon, Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State I probably put in front of us. I probably put us at that 5 or 6 range right now.
Okay, so it's pretty handy from what everybody said. It's absolutely nuts that Ole Miss is in those waters at the moment.
It is, man, and this is just me speaking on being here for a few years now, but also watching and understanding this team when Lane got here, right before Lane got here, and knowing a little bit of the history before he was here, and just being an Arkansas fan as well. It's truly I can't express how it feels. Like I truly can't. Like I feel like I've lived through so much like just dysfunction and sadness throughout my college football fandom. And to see this before the season starts, to see the hype, to see the season tickets already sold out, to see the coming off an 11-win season, all the transfer guys coming in and speaking so highly about our staff and the school and where we've been and what we looked like last year. It's just amazing. It really is. And that's why I said that so much last year. And I'll say this again right now and coming into the season. Enjoy it because I hope this will continue throughout my lifetime where we keep getting 10, 11-win season, competing, for it, hopefully now SEC championship and national championships. But if we don't, enjoy it because this may be coming for once in a lifetime, and I'm really enjoying it. Like, I enjoyed so much of it last year. We won every single home game. The 2 games we lost on the road were to two of the best teams in the country against Georgia and Alabama last year. And as an Ole Miss fan, I know from just recently, but I know guys that have been around longer, like you, we don't get opportunities like this much often. And we've had great spells over the last few years, but we haven't seen consistent national competence from us since Johnny Vaught in the 60s. And so to see us in this era right now is truly just really fun. And again, like I said earlier, it's not just football, it's the entire athletic program. And that's a really big shout out to Keith Carter as well for what he's done as well.
Real quick, when will they put these student tickets on sale?
I've already got mine. I can't speak for everyone else. I know that when you register for classes, you are able to do so. Maybe because I'm not a freshman, I was able to do that earlier. Okay. And I had that ability to do that earlier, but I've already got mine. I'm secured and ready for the season, man.
Okay. And is that general admission, or do you have like actual seats?
We're just general admission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That north end zone is going to be hot, but yeah. Luckily, it looks like it's going to be mostly like the first game against Furman's, like a 6 o'clock kickoff. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of nice because normally it comes in at 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm a little bit excited about, because last year we had a pretty good, decent amount of night games, which kind of flooded things out a little bit. I remember my freshman year there, and like every game was in the daytime, and it just beaming on us in the student section, which was understandable. That's just a part of the football circumstances, but it also wasn't fun for us, especially in games those first couple of games of the season where you're just blowing teams out, not playing high value talent. So it's kind of frustrating, but we love the night games, and it gives us more time in the Grove as well. So
thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, Daylan gets to be the first person on the hot seat this week, the top 5 greatest head coaches in Ole Miss history. We'll see what this man from Arkansas has to say about that. But first, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They have superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all of that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, so Daylan is on the hot seat today. The topic is the top 5 Ole Miss football head coaches. We're going to ask all the guests this week and maybe some of the ones when we're on vacation next week. We're just going to do this top 5 over and over again because honestly, this is a pretty cool list. This is the way this works. Every one of my guests, we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the top 5 coaches in Ole Miss football history. Now, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because this is my show and I can do it how I want. But we do it with the guest in this different way. And we're going to start with number 5, Daylan.
Okay, this was literally the hardest one for me. Like, I had so many names that I thought could be here and go in and out, but I went Billy Brewer, one of our legendary coaches from the 80s and early 90s. Billy, just reading a lot about Billy, one of the greatest motivators in locker room player coaches we've ever had, and not just Ole Miss, but in the college football history. A couple 9-win season, and I think continue to try to develop a consistency from that Johnny Vaught era in the 60s and a little bit of struggle after Johnny Vaught left. But I thought Billy Brewer had to be mentioned in this list, although it's very tough for that number 5 spot. But I thought his legacy and what he meant to Oxford and Ole Miss football I had to put him in that list for me, though.
Yeah, Billy Brewer, he doesn't probably get the credit he deserves because the whole time he was the head coach at Ole Miss, he was swimming upstream, essentially trying to get it going because during the 70s, Ole Miss was a train wreck. It just absolutely was. And then he just slowly, incrementally making it better and better and better. And then the Jackie Sherrill, Billy Brewer thing that eventually brought him down with the NCAA and all of that. But Billy Brewer was kind of instrumental in what Ole Miss football is in 2024. Seriously. All right, number 4.
All right, 4, I went David Cutcliffe. Of course, late 90s, early 2000s. Cotton Bowl winners, of course, the Eli Manning seasons. He was under David Cutcliffe, and I think he just brought back a national relevancy to Ole Miss that hadn't been seen in a while. And I think David, although a short period here, Ole Miss consistently brought media and national consistency to the squad that we hadn't seen in a long time before David. And I thought David did a good job. Again, I know it was a short tenure, but what he was able to accomplish in that short time was something before him we hadn't seen in about 20, 25 years. And of course, he produced Eli Manning, who was probably one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. And consistently, we continue to beat teams up in that period as well, especially Eli Manning years. And so I put David at 4, and I think that him as well throughout that period is coming off Billy. I know we had John Lee, and we weren't consistently winning with John Lee either. And so David kind of brought back that little consistency of winning from his short time period at Ole Miss.
Yes, whenever I was doing AFN in La Maddalena, Italy in 2002 and 2003, this was probably 2003 in about July, David Cutcliffe actually came on my radio show that I was doing in Italy. I had him, I had Frank Solich, and I had Ron Zook. Those 3 coaches, and it tells you they're probably really good people if they were giving just some random sailor the time of day in La Maddalena, Italy, as I'm doing my Good Morning Vietnam thing and trying to act like a serious radio journalist. So number 3.
Put Hugh Freeze at number 3. Obviously, his remarks are obviously not unknown to the Ole Miss community, even though he's now on the other side of Auburn. But did, of course, a really good job recruiting, whether you want to admit that or not. I will admit it, he did a really good job recruiting. Was one of the few coaches, if I'm not mistaken, to beat Nick Saban back-to-back years. And he just brought a life to the Oxford community at that time that we hadn't seen really since the early 2000s. It had been a long time before then. And not only that, I thought he was just a good realization of what college football, where it was headed at that time. And I thought he was just really ahead of his game when he was at Ole Miss. Had a chance to, actually win the SEC West Championship one year. And of course, unfortunately, my Arkansas Razorbacks had to ruin that for my Ole Miss fans a little bit. But I think Hugh just consistently brought in and out what he wanted from players and his coaching staff. And we saw the great repercussions of it, man. We had a great quarterback tendency during that time, and I thought Hugh just brought national relevancy to Ole Miss, and not just from a football standpoint. I think that's why I said earlier I thought he was ahead of his time at that point, because that time period that he was here, we were in the transition of kind of where we are now, but we weren't there yet, I would say. And I thought he was just he just did a really good job at advancing just the understanding of recruiting and media and merchandise and numbers and stuff like that. So I thought Hugh did a really good job, and I definitely believe he deserves to be on that top 5 list.
Yes, absolutely. Number 2.
It's good old Lane Kiffin. And I think Lane, with the consistency that I believe he can have and should have in the next coming years, can hopefully get to that number 1 spot with a little bit more postseason success and a higher postseason success. But Lane has, in a short amount of time, developed one of the best win percentages here as a head coach at Ole Miss. Done it in and out. Coming in during the COVID season was not easy at all. And just consistently is now his second 10-plus win season, his first 11-win season in Ole Miss history. Recruited his butt off. Brought in a coaching staff that has a good remark of relevancy to the newer college football, but it also has a little bit of NFL and old college football history as well. And so I think he's done a really good job with his staff. And he's won games. I mean, I said the 10-win season in 2021 and now 11-win season this past year. He's won games. And I think that was a big question mark for a lot of people, with Lane coming here originally, not much true success as a head coach in college football from a Power 5 standpoint. And he's done that here. And you really can't demise what he's done. He's done it on every part of it. And his ability to grow this program, grow this school, grow this football team has been absolutely phenomenal in the last few years.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's not a situation – Lane Kiffin can't jump Johnny Vaught, not for another 15 years or something like that. But Lane Kiffin can make it to where it's him and Johnny Vaught and nobody else. That's what Lane Kiffin is looking at right now. All right, number one.
It's Johnny Vaught, man. 3 national championships, 6 SEC titles. Obviously, won't be remarked from any Ole Miss fan if names on the stadium for a reason, has a statue right outside the stadium for a reason. Just an innovator. And I think that he truly was one of the best to ever do it and will always be one of the best to ever do it. I think Johnny Vaught essentially at that time was competing with a lot of SWC schools, Southwest Conference schools outside of our conference, and just consistently was beating teams up. When you go into the Vaught, and if you haven't been, you see those national championships. That's who brought that to Ole Miss. And you can't be undescribable what Johnny Vaught was able to do at this school. And his history will always be here. Like I feel like as an Ole Miss football fan, you truly can't call yourself a fan if you don't know who Johnny Vaught is and you don't know the history and what he was able to do in Oxford. Like it truly can be described. The innovation and the start of what he did was truly helped transform to where we are today.
Yeah, and you being an Arkansas guy, he's the one that started up the Frank Brawls and Johnny Vaught playing together, and then it went away and it came back in the 80s. And now that Texas is coming back into the SEC, Texas is the big rival. I will concede that. But as far as the SEC teams, it was always Ole Miss. They might not play for a trophy, but it was always Ole Miss.
Yeah, and I think that, just saying that like Texas and OU coming into the conference brings a little bit of that old school swagger back and just the development of the national football media and where it is today. But I really do love Johnny Vaught. Like I wish, honestly, and I say this in a good way, that we kind of splatter his name and his name, what he did a little bit more around the campus. And I think that they will here in the coming season with a lot of different things going on. But Johnny Vaught's number one and probably will always be number one.
Yeah, and he came to Ole Miss as an offensive innovator. That's what he was. It was all offense all the way through Archie Manning. It was offense. And he pretty much established a tradition that still exists today where you have Hugh Freeze that was an offensive innovator. And now you've got Lane Kiffin, who's an offensive innovator. If you want a blueprint of how to be successful at the University of Mississippi, it is to be an offensive innovator.
I have to agree, man. And I say this as well, like you said, that's a great point that you made about Lane. Lane probably won't ever be able to top Johnny, but he has a chance to make it just him and Johnny at the top. And that has to be a testament to what Lane has done in a short period of time. And I really can't say that enough, that he's done a really good job at Ole Miss.
Yeah, it would take a fall reminiscence of what Hugh Freeze went through for Lane Kiffin to slow down, because Lane Kiffin won 11 games last year. He's probably expected to win 10 games this year. That would be 3 out of 4 years to where he won 10 football games. And then if Ole Miss were to host a playoff game, it would be, you take away like 1957 to 1963, that period, it would be the second best period in the history of Ole Miss football.
And that feels good. Like I know we're kind of being repetitive now, but that really feels good to be in this point, to be able to talk about that within our own program. That feels good. And I think we should take pride in that. Like I really do, because I'll say this real quick. I've gone so sick and tired of other SEC schools just kind of bashing us and not really being acceptance of what we've done last year and the years prior with Lane here. But I'm really proud of where we are as a football team, where we are as a program. It's come a long way, but I couldn't be happier and excited.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team, every single day. Daylan Flowers joins the show. We will get him back probably in 2 weeks, but like I said, next week I'll be on vacation, and in 3 weeks I'll be at my mom's house, so I won't be doing the podcast. So basically vacation 2 out of the next 3 weeks. But we'll see exactly how that goes. Daylan, thank you very much, man. I appreciate everything you do. And then once we get back in July, man, it's kind of go time.
It is, man. I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to just take this and run with it, man. And we wish you safe travels on all of your travel and vacation time as well, man.
All right. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, bud.
All right, man. Howdy-toddy, y'all. Be safe.